This is now the third time I have filmed this video. I don't know why things aren't working today on my computer. Let's all take a big deep breath. Do y'all know that it's Teacher Appreciation Week? Because teachers are amazing. And what a hard job. I can tell you this. I was a nightmare to have in a classroom. Yeah, I have Tourette's, but also I was an asshole. And having me in a classroom was just like no easy task. Like my teachers, the good ones, deserve medals, plaques, unlimited alcohol, a huge raise. I think right now with COVID and everyone's stuck at home, everyone's realizing that teachers are superheroes. So I thought it would be fun for me to tell you about a few of my favorite teachers. Did I have some awful ones throughout the years? Yeah. Really, really bad ones. But I also, and more importantly, had so many who changed my life. So here is a video about them and what they taught me and what maybe you can learn too. I don't know. Gosh, my hair was so cute like 17 hours ago when I did this video the first time. Oh, and I'm only going to use first names except for one. So let's start with my English teacher from high school, Sarah. Sarah got me to love reading, but specifically, she lit the way for me to realize that there were authors who are hilarious and write about their screwed up lives. Authors are books like Running with Scissors, Naked, Me Talk Pretty One Day. She was the first teacher that I think got me creatively writing. And like celebrated my creative writing. She helped me, do a playwriting class for the Vermont Young Playwright Festival. She had me write an essay about how much of an asshole I was in the morning that got me into the Breadloaf Young Writers Conference. She, I think, was the teacher that was like, you don't need to wait for Tourette's to like go away or calm down for you to like be your awesome self and celebrate the hell out of it. You can have Tourette's and be an artist and be incredible. And I actually think she was like, also like having Tourette's might make you a better artist. I don't think she ever explicitly said that. Maybe she did. She changed my life. And I remember when a student would say something really like awful and weird. Like I had a student, I was like towel drying my hair in the bathroom on the girls' floor. And a girl came up to me and she was like, if I or anyone else I know had your life, we'd probably be curled up in a cave somewhere slitting our wrists. And I like knew enough niceties to know like you should say thank you when someone comments, like when someone compliments you, even if it's just like a horrifying compliment. And I remember it happened and me being like, gotta call Sarah, because I knew she'd appreciate it and laugh with me. And she was also like, you might have just found out the opening line to your college essays. And I did. Next up, we have my math teacher, Dave. I hate math. To this day, I hate math. I would truthfully, rather be punched in the uterus than do a math problem. And Dave knew this. I didn't hide it. I was a nightmare. I dreaded going to math every day. But Dave is a musician, and he made math creative in a way that is really hard to do. And as an educator, as now someone who like works in the field of creativity and often, doing artist, educator, and resident programs and going and teaching inclusion and mental health through creativity. I think he was the first one, or one of the first ones that helped me see that you can infuse creativity into anything. He was the one that when my Tourette's was making loud metronome noises, he was like, let's write songs about math. And we like used me as a metronome. He also had this ability to do tough love. And when I say tough love, I put the emphasis on both tough and love, because he would call me on my bullshit and he would like help me celebrate when I wrote a cool song. Oh, he also did song recording. Or when I finished a math problem, or I like successfully turned in my homework that wasn't ripped up, because I ripped up my homework many nights. I remember when I would like make excuses, he would go, poor baby. And because we had a relationship that I laughed with him, we had fun, he celebrated me, he was also able to equally call me out and push me past my comfort zone. And I think that is such a sign of a cool teacher. One that's able to teach in a subject that you hate and still like, I loved him. I went to math, which getting me to go to math, a miracle, I tell you. Next is our headmaster, John. I will probably talk about it down the line. I'm not quite ready yet, but I had a tough home life and a tough situation with a member of my family that was really we were like in it when I was in high school. It was tough. And John kind of became a father figure, whether he wanted to or not. He was like our headmaster, and just to like have a quirky, amazing, smart headmaster who I appreciated every time he spoke in front of the school. I always learned something from him. I remember every now and again he'd say a bad word and I'd be like, yes! But he never did it in a mean way. But my favorite memory of him, and I think what stands out the most, is that I got into this writing conference and my English teacher was supposed to drive me, but she got the flu. And I remember thinking that I can't go. And John was like, no, I'm driving you. Like, I'm going to take you. And he drove me a few hours there. And I just remember sitting in the car and him sharing stories with me and just like loving every minute of it. And then he dropped me off and he like helped me find my room. He made sure I was set up. But the moment I won't forget is that we all went to the dining hall. And it was that like petrifying moment where I didn't know anybody. I was like a kid with Tourette's who was different. And I walked and I got my tray and I was like, had to go find people to sit with. I found people to sit with. And as I looked around the room, I realized that he was watching. He waited to leave until he knew that I was going to be okay. And I think, God, I felt like that. I just won't ever forget that moment. So I'm so thankful for John. He also knew that I loved American Idol. When I was a freshman, it was like I think it was like Kelly Clarkson and Justin Guarini. And yes, I absolutely remember that. And we weren't really allowed to watch TV, but he had a tiny little TV in his office. But we had this like auction. And they auctioned off things and you earned like money. I think it was according to your grades. So I think it was like an honor roll auction. And all of the money like had our faces on it. He like had the money, like he made it all. But he, one year he knew I really wanted to watch American Idol. And he told me, if you get honor roll, we'll see if we can make that happen. And he auctioned off the ability to watch American Idol in his office. I had just enough money to bid on it and win it. Don't think that was a coincidence. Also, nobody else cared about that show but me. And it made it so once a week I laid on the floor of his office and I watched American Idol. And I loved that. My art teacher, Jeannie, who I wrote so many apology letters to, who, even though I'm not an artist I don't remember the word, but I like don't paint. I don't do those types of arts. She made art feel like an escape and therapy. She got me into calligraphy. She got me into recycled art. And we would like sit in class and she'd play music and it just was therapeutic. Kathy, the science teacher, who science is very much like math, would rather be punched in the face than do it. And yet I loved science because of Kathy. All of our teachers brought their dogs to school and Kathy's dog was named Drake. And my favorite is that one day Drake was loudly snoring in class and I said, why can Drake sleep and I can't? And she goes, because she's the Drake. And I said, well, I'm the Pam. And she called me the Pam then for a while. I'm cleaning up my mother's basement right now while I'm home. And I found a journal that Kathy had given me with lessons from Drake. And they're all like life lessons and they're incredible. And I like found it and I read it to my mother and I cried and I'm taking it back to New York with me. It's going to be like on my journal collection. I think the thing these teachers all have in common is that they both saw me for who I was and celebrated me and pushed me and didn't let me make excuses and didn't let me say, I can't do that because I have Tourette's, which for so many years of my life, I was so petrified of not being successful that became the blanket at which I hid under. I was so afraid to try and afraid of failing because the messaging had been so clear for so long that I couldn't do it, that I used it as an excuse. And the teachers who I loved were the ones who also were the hardest on me. But it was that like equal amazing balance. I'll do one from undergrad. I went to Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois. Loved it. We'll for sure do videos on that. But my theater professor, Liz, I think is the one that I'm going to highlight in this video, although there were many great professors from Knox. You know, I think I still had the belief or the narrative that I couldn't be on stage, that whatever I did with art would be behind the scenes. A writer, I would write comedy, but being on stage wasn't an option because of Tourette's. And I remember her one day, I think I was in a theater class with her, but it was just her and I in the theater. And she basically was like, you might not have parts that are written that you just fit into, but you will pave a way. Like you will find a way. And she was like, you absolutely should be on stage. And I don't remember the exact words of the conversation, but I remember leaving the theater that day feeling like I can have Tourette's and still be an actress. I can have Tourette's and still be on stage. And she was a tough professor. I worked my ass off in her classes. In grad school, my favorite professor was one of the professors in my graduate program. Like by the time you're in grad school, you know what you want to study, and you're taking classes that are for the most part of interest to you. But she brought things to life in a way that showed me like how to teach in front of a room. I took every single class that she offered. Her tests were so hard because you couldn't just regurgitate information. You had to like internalize the information about child advocacy and policy and apply it. And I loved that on tests because it wasn't memorization, which I suck at and which is where my learning disability is. It was applying it and proving that you understand it. And I loved that. And finally, I said there would be one teacher that I would say her full name. And I'm going to do this for a reason. It's the only one on this list that I have not been able to find. And I like want to say thank you to this educator, and I've not been able to find her. She is my guidance counselor from middle school, and her name is Claudia Allred. And I've been trying to find her for years to say thank you. I think it's so important to go find the teachers that change your life and thank them. I have messaged everyone on Facebook with that name asking if it's them. I have called the school. I have tried everything I can think of. Mrs. Allred was my guidance counselor when things were really getting really rough, when I had broken bones from Tourette's. I was out of school, a big chunk of middle school. I was absolutely suicidal. And I would take breaks from class and hang out in her office and drink hot cocoa with her. At that time, so many people were saying that I wouldn't amount to anything. There were so many messages that I could hear. They weren't behind closed doors, that my disability would define me. It would be the piece for the rest of my life that made it so I couldn't be the person that I wanted to be. I wouldn't reach goals. And she was the voice of like, no, like we're going to celebrate you and we're going to figure out what you can do. And it's okay if you can't do all of these things, but we're going to figure out what that is. And she was a positive voice in a sea of really awful, awful, painful ones. And what I will never forget is that the day I finished 8th grade was the day that she retired. And she took me out to lunch and she gave me a journal. And it was before anybody else had ever given me that gift. I now collect journals, but she gave me a journal. And to me, that it felt like she saw me. She made me promise that I'd keep in touch with her. And then I had a few years after that of just being so suicidal and depressed and withdrawing from the world. And by the time I circled back and felt like I wanted to get in touch, I couldn't find her. And she in a world of voices of people telling me I can't do it, she was the one that just thought maybe I could. And what I think I wish educators would do and learn from all of this is that I think the world has this desire to put a limit to what they can do, especially when they're young. And like, let's stop doing that. Let's instead celebrate each kid, give them the tools that they need to be successful, remind them that success looks different for everyone, and help them find what they can do and help them reach their fullest potential instead of saying, you won't, you can't, you're not capable. But to teachers, thank you. And I will always know that I can be successful not despite Tourette's, but maybe because of. And it's because of teachers like you that made me feel like that and made me see that. So thank you, thank you, thank you.